Hello, everyone. Welcome. Wanted to get kicked off before we get into introductions and everything, just a couple housekeeping items. Basically, we're doing a series of sessions, interview, kind of fireside chat style. Really just talking to all different people like Eddie here in the channel just to help out others and to share information across different aspects of the channel. If you do have any questions as we go through today or comments or anything like that, please don't hesitate to put them into the LinkedIn comments right there, and then we'll see them on our side and can talk about them, show them on the screen, etc. If they're pertinent. We're scheduled for about 30 minutes today. We may go over, maybe less, but that's about the time here. So, topic-wise, today we're talking about the human side of cybersecurity for MSPs, really, and it's going to kind of go a few different directions here, but basically, just how can you enhance your cyber awareness training in different ways, pretty much. And we're going to talk about the setup of the training, the marketing of the training, operational aspects, just different pieces. Quick intro of myself, Mark Howells. I'm Chief Strategist at Dakota Ridge Marketing. We work solely with IT companies, really looking at this kind of opportunity triangle, as we call it, where there's, as you I'm sure know, such a huge knowledge gap between what your potential clients know and what you guys know. And we try to fill that gap really with content. Brings in 3 times the number of leads for cheaper than outbound. And unfortunately, IT companies are either usually doing no marketing or poor marketing. And so we love to help out with that. Today, I'm joined by such a wonderful person in his own right, Eddie Phillips here. I will let you introduce yourself. I will say that I was looking at your profile yesterday and was quite jealous of where you're headed next week to Italy for a talk there. So would love to hear a little bit about that, but also just your experience over the last, I think it's almost 30 years if I saw,
right?
Not to date you at all.
Dating, yeah.
Yeah. But would love to hear more about you real quick.
Awesome. You know what? First off, Mark, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. I'm honored, blessed to have this opportunity to speak with you. My name is Eddie Phillips. You're right. It'll be 30 years since I really got rolling. So just to give you an idea of how old I really am, my first IT job was with Microsoft at the launch of Windows 95. So yeah, we're definitely coming on 30 years. But beyond that, I did work. I spent, I guess, probably 15 years around on the enterprise side as a security analyst, systems engineer. Before, thinking it was a great idea to start my own business. I was a great tech and a great analyst. Decided to start my own MSP in 2008 and learned absolutely everything the hard way. I thought being a great tech would make me a great MSP owner. It's not true.
No, not the case.
It is not. It is not true. Operationally, I was awesome. Financially, marketing, all of those aspects, I really sucked. So it took me a few years to kind of get my legs under me, but the rest is history. For the next 14 years, I ended up leading 2 different MSPs, and then finally sold in May of 2022. And now I've gone to the dark side. I mean, the vendor side. And I was contacted by Malwarebytes, looking for someone to be the face of the channel, someone who could speak to MSPs could at their level, understand their needs, and this brings me to where I am now. And now I'm helping them manage their. I'm a senior manager for their channel sales, working on their OEM side. So I'm blessed to be able to do a lot of conferences, which does take me to Italy next week, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Nice. Where in Italy, I have to ask?
So it'll just be east of Bologna. I'm still struggling to pronounce it that way, but yeah. So it's southeast. It's right on the coast. It looks beautiful. Yeah. So I don't know the name of the small area that I'm in, but yeah, it looks absolutely gorgeous.
Wonderful. Well, I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, it'll be great.
So to jump in right away. So again, this is kind of a fireside chat, just kind of interview style, just throwing questions out there. at you, and we'll see what we get into. I wanted to start off by really just setting kind of the baseline, the record straight for anyone who's on the call who's thinking about maybe adding in, cyber awareness training services to their already, list of services or what have you. And this comes out of I actually saw a report yesterday from, I think it's Avast, their threat report from Q1, and the numbers were, to me, amazing. But they did a look at 3.5 billion cyber attacks, which is quite a large data set.
Yeah.
And it showed that 90% of mobile and 80% of desktop attacks involve social engineering. So, with that said, what are the most common types of kind of human errors that lead to cyber breaches?
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised by the stats that you mentioned at all. In fact, what we saw. So I'm gonna put my MSP hat on for the majority of this discussion, just to relate my experiences and how we saw things and how we changed and reacted to the changes in the cyber landscape. And certainly, we're always looking for the most efficient ways to do things, right? And I think, to our detriment sometimes. And I mean, the whole basis of social engineering is to take advantage of human nature, right? I mean, so if you get a text from what looks to be your boss or your manager or the CEO, you want to react. If you get an email that looks like it comes from IT, or an email that looks urgent, and we saw over and over again the gift card scam, where it looks like the owner of the business email somebody. We actually, in the early days of owning my MSP, we did have one or two people fall for it before we realized. I mean, we're talking way back in probably the 2016 era, where before we really got our legs under us when it comes to cybersecurity awareness training, that people were falling for it. And it took some education on our part at the C level first. And I think not to jump to the end of the not to jump to the end there, but I think it really does come from the top down. I'll never forget, we had one of our biggest clients get hit by ransomware in 2014, and afterwards, when we did the investigation, we found out that it came in through a phishing email.
Hmm.
And when we sat down with the CEO of the company, this is a large worldwide clothing manufacturer. We sat down with the CEO and a couple of the managers, the decision makers, and when we reported our findings, his comment was, and this kills me every time I repeat the story, his comment was, "Oh, a phishing email. Well, a phishing email is like an IQ test, and if you get hit, if you fall for a phishing email, you failed the IQ test." And we were like,
Ooh.
God. So that is not the message that we want to be
Right.
sending to staff, right? It is not. Now these days it is a trillion upon trillion dollar industry, for cyber criminals to infect and take advantage and distribute ransomware and cash in. So they're gonna do everything in their power to make sure that they're doing it right, that they're being efficient, that they're going to use effective methods. And so that's where we started, was the top down, to start education.
Okay. Yeah, that it brings up in my head, some, as you said, they're going to do everything in their power to get it right.
Yeah.
And there's another study. Again, I was just researching some stuff recently. This Sophos study, email attacks are moving away from just a social engineering kind of simple email, the one blast out, if you will, to active engagement over email, threads of emails, multiple, kind of building this relationship over time. And it's tough to just say it's an IQ test. If you get caught, you know. And then you think about, like, what was that, the deep fake thing in Hong Kong recently with
Right.
that video of, I think it was the CFO, or
Yeah.
supposedly the CFO. I mean, that's tough to handle, as an employee.
Yeah, it's surprising how well it works. I put together a video. I support one of our OEMs in Germany, and I don't speak a lick of German, but I did a presentation for their U.S. headquarters, and they wanted a version for their German office. And I can't remember what AI platform I used, but essentially it translated and made it look like I spoke German through the entire thing. Like, it is absolutely amazing how far, and I'm sure it's going to go a lot further. I mean, I've seen the recreation of when you provided like a video clip, and so it's fairly monotone. There's not a whole lot of action to it,
Mhm.
but certainly if that's the person's personality anyway, people are
Sure.
going to fall for it,
Yeah. But when it comes with that cloud of, the C-suite is
right?
contacting you as this employee, and you're
Yeah,
like, "I will do whatever it takes to make you
exactly.
happy."
Exactly.
So,
You're going to bend over backwards for that person, no matter,
yeah.
yeah, no matter
Yeah.
what they say.
So with all of that said, let's move on to kind of talking more about the training side of it. So in your mind, what techniques, tools, strategies can be used to develop really engaging educational content so people care about this? People start to, be aware of it and want to be a part of, the cybersecurity side of things, if you will.
Right. And so I want to take a step back when we start to look at the tools that are out there, what a lot of MSPs and a lot of companies are implementing, and they have their place, and that's the cybersecurity awareness, the phishing simulation emails, which
Yes.
most people consider cybersecurity awareness, and they're great and they have their place. But I think implementing a solution like that just to say that you have cybersecurity awareness is falling, way short of the mark. I don't think it's nearly enough. Uh, that's a tool that we did use. So if we want to talk about other tools and other methods, one thing that we found was extremely effective was that once or twice a year we would do in-person training, and we would make an event out of it. So we would bring in pizza for our clients, and we make a big lunch and learn, and we would be interactive. I mean, we would be. I mean, it's so funny how the little things is what gets people attention. We'd have like big bags of M&Ms for people who got questions right during the
Right.
like what's a phishing email, and you make it interactive. But what an opportunity for an MSP to talk about their challenges and really humanize the effect of threat actors and the impacts on business. Like, I mean, you can get a phishing simulation email and you can fail it and you can take the training, but for me to stand up in front of my clients to talk about our horrific experience in 2014 when one of our clients got ransomware and what we went through and the emotional turmoil and the outage for that business and the revenue loss and the struggle that we have, and it's okay to admit that you have struggles because cybersecurity, as you know, changes all the time.
Yep.
So for you to share that with people starts to get the brain going, right? And when you can pull up examples and you can talk about it, was and probably our strongest tool. I would say right after that is encouraging companies to be very open about it. So what we did was we encouraged one. I know one of our clients had embraced it wholeheartedly, and they actually had a security Teams channel. And so what would happen was it would became a joke within the company. Someone would get a text from the CEO, which the CEO said, "I will never send you a text," and asking you to do anything. And so people would take screenshots and they post it in that Teams channel, and the whole company would make jokes about the new guy that finally gets the CEO's scam text. And so
Right.
the awareness became common, everyday, and part of their culture. To be quite honest.
Right. That's a big thing. I think, you said it was top down from the C level, which makes perfect sense. But if you can make it trickle down all the way to a part of the culture,
Yeah.
then you've got something going here. What are your thoughts about kind of gamification? Using leaderboards and different things like that. So, Johnny beats Sarah on awareness training or phishing simulations, et cetera.
I mean, I think every company was going to have its strong points. Like I said, we had that one company that used that security Teams channel. It didn't really jive for some of the other companies. I mean, if you've got a strong sales team within a company, they might find that gamification, really, really attractive and
Yep.
cause some, friendly, competition within the company. But I
Right.
think you got to be really careful about the culture of those specific companies.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I love, obviously, coming from the marketing side, like I love the storytelling
Yeah.
side of it. I mean, that's what we always go to. I think about H to H, human to human marketing, and it's human to human training and saying, opening up and saying, this is who we are as an MSP, and this is what we've done, this is what we've seen, being fully transparent. That lowers all the walls and kind of allows for your clients to say, okay, this is good. This is a good communication and kind of open, relationship really. And we want to work with you longer because of it. So, um, jumping over to the next question, really, how can insights from tools like Malwarebytes, ThreatDown be leveraged to create kind of customized training materials or just training in general?
Yeah. So, I mean, if I have this something, a message that I always try to send MSPs. And I think from a tool perspective, I mean, we talked about this, the phishing simulations, but I think when you start talking about things like your endpoint detection and response and your managed detection and response, which Malwarebytes does provide through ThreatDown. But I think you want to be really careful about what you're communicating to your client specifically. I tell MSPs all the time, I mean, know your product, research your product, understand your product, make sure it meets your needs. But if your clients know the name of your endpoint protection, if they know the name of your backup disaster recovery system, you are talking about the wrong thing to your clients. You need to be focusing on the value, right? You need to be focusing on how that speaks to their ROI. And if you're focusing on tools and you're focusing on how many patches you deployed, it is completely the incorrect. So I think the tools come in place where you have to have those tools in place to protect the low hanging fruit. And I think when you start to talk about things, instances like EDR and MDR, I think having being plugged into those types of tools will give you a different type of insight to what's happening on that client. I mean, the very nature of EDR that does behavioral analysis of an instance where someone does get infected, will require an entirely different stream of incident response and that sort of thing, which is a whole other discussion about what MSPs should be investing in their time in. But when it comes to that, it does give you that insight on, hey, that should trigger some sort of training. If you've had to go to, if your EDR has had to rescue you and you've had to, and it happened, and something has happened after hours, whether it be, an email while someone's traveling, and you've had to engage your MDR solution, you can go back and say, hey, what's the root cause? What are we missing in the beginning that's causing us to allow that kind of a threat through?
Yeah. No, I love that you brought that up because originally I was kind of thinking about it as like a resource option of like, oh, going working with, Malwarebytes or whomever. There's a lot of research done and a lot of information and resources that I can pull from to work and add to my training. But I love that idea of kind of being proactive, if you will, about it, and I guess reactive in a way of seeing, oh, this is happening with this client. Therefore, we need to circle that into the training because they obviously need it. Um, I was also looking at like the OneView console, which is, I believe, part of ThreatDown. Is there's that dashboard to see everything. Can that be used at all and pulled into the training ethos of the MSP?
Oh, 100%. Especially we've got our new SAM, our new security summary that's right on our dashboard. It's a great way to begin to understand and communicate where you're at as an MSP, especially again at that C level, helping them understand, you know, again, not so much about the tools, which need to be strong and you need to have them out there, but relying on vendors that will support that, like exactly what you just said, the threat down console that'll shows you where the weaknesses might be. That's certainly a powerful tool when it comes to implementing and showing that value, while you're making that journey as an MSP along with your client, right? I mean, it's all about that communication, right? Your words are really powerful, and if you can use a tool like the dashboard and ThreatDown and Malwarebytes to show your client the journey, right, of where you need to be, it becomes less about I'm trying to sell you a security solution and more like I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with you, Mr. Client. Here's the path forward, and let's do it together.
Yep. No, that's perfect. And that's actually a wonderful segue. So thank you for that. Into our next question, which is more, getting into kind of the marketing side of it. You're talking to potential clients about your service offerings. You bring up, cyber awareness training. How, as an MSP, can I get clients to care about that, care about their employees, following the right procedures, and those end users, honestly, to care about cybersecurity? It always it still amazes me, the numbers, again, looking at the data, just because I like to do that, of, how many attacks, how many breaches are going on, and how many small
Mhm.
businesses are just like, I'm fine, I'm good, no worries. How do you say, no, this is important? And is it always going the negative doom and gloom way from a messaging perspective? And, this is what could happen. Everything could, shut down and da, 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 or is it, can you shift it to be positive to show them the light?
Oh man, you are, yeah. We're on the same soapbox. I love it. I'll make some room for you. It's, I I'm a big, you know, I'm a big fan of. If you don't know if you ever read the book "Never Split the Difference" by Chris Voss.
I've
If you've
not.
never read it, if anybody who's watching, if you've never read it, read that book. It is
Of course.
phenomenal. He's so Chris Voss is an ex FBI negotiator, and what he does, it's really the book's about negotiation, but it changes the way you speak. Even if
Mm,
you want to talk about something that isn't necessarily a negotiation, although you could argue that talking about cybersecurity and implementing tools and resources and could fall into the negotiation realm. But he has a really interesting approach, and one of the biggest things that I pulled out of there is using how questions, like, how, Mr. Client, would you know respond, or how would you react if you got ransomware? I mean, you could obviously, you'd pull it apart. Like if you came in one day and none of your systems were up,
right.
how does that impact you? How does that impact your clients and your powerful powerful thing about the how questions is that it changes the paradigm from trying to tell a client what the problem is in, towards educating them on what the problem is, right? So if you can if you can elicit that emotional response, because I'll tell you what, I know I've lived through it a couple of times. Going through a ransomware attack is an emotional experience. And if you can elicit that motion, if you can draw that out, and they can try to help them, relive or live through that experience,
Yeah.
you're going to make it a lot further than just like spewing stats,
Right.
or trying to illustrate why this tool is so great and what it's going to protect you from. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. The numbers are amazing on, because we obviously do B2B, right?
Yeah.
Services, and still B2B, it all comes down to human emotion. If you
Uh-huh.
can get that human
Right.
emotion triggered,
Yeah.
you're, as you said, a lot further along than just trying to, push something on them, if you will. So I love that kind of scenario based. It opens up so many possibilities from an emotional standpoint and from a communication standpoint with that potential client or client, to get them to start seeing, yeah, the path ahead, and
Right.
what possibilities there could be, as opposed to just, this is what's going to happen, I'm going to tell you that you need this, I'm going to do this. It's amazing, yeah, the shift in the brain that occurs. So
Oh yeah, 100%.
um, so following up to that, kind of, what would you say are some effective marketing tips, to showcase, cybersecurity training programs, attracting new clients, everything like that?
I mean, so I'm a bit of a sadist, so I really enjoy public speaking. So, I mean, if you've got someone in your company, if you're an MSP and you're looking to grow, I would say that it took us about 2 years to get traction, and we just started going to different organizations. Like in Canada, there's the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters. We became a member of that organization, and we wouldn't give away the security awareness training for free, of course, but we would do some level of cybersecurity education, so they knew where to come to get
Mhm.
more resources to incorporate our cybersecurity curriculum into their business. So I would say, man, the best way to do it is just getting out there. Mind you, I've never been a fan of cold calling. Not that it doesn't work. I just suck at it.
Yeah.
So I would rather show up an event and network, or show up an event, and certainly if you can speak, just getting up on stage, gives you that next level of not reliability, but expertise, right? People
Yep.
begin to literally and figuratively look up to you for whatever you're speaking about. So, man, that was a massive move for us to be more public about what we're doing.
Cool. And I'll throw a couple things in here, obviously, from the
Sure.
marketing side, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. You're the
Yeah, I
expert.
mean, we focus on digital side of things, but it's the same idea. It's, getting in front of people, and communicating in a way, and
Oh yeah.
that's knowing your ICP, knowing who you're talking to, knowing their psychographics, which is their why, right? Why why would they care? What is in it really for them? Is it, they want that boat on the weekend? Is it they, care about their family and want to make sure their business is, you know, continuous, and therefore that's why they care? That's, I think, a big piece of it. Creating enticing, unique content. As you may know out there, Google is bringing out some quite
Yeah,
significant shifts coming
that's
soon.
right. Yeah.
So we're constantly playing with that, but you can no longer just push out content about cybersecurity. It's got to be unique. There has to be videos and quotes from your subject matter experts and all these different elements as part of it to showcase thought leadership and to do exactly what you're doing on the stage, but I think in a digital way. And social proof helps. Stories, we definitely
Oh,
talk about stories. You
stories are
can't just say, here are my services and let me list out the features of those services. You have to get that emotional connection.
yeah.
But yeah,
And it,
just under sorry.
and oh, I was just going to say, and the whole, I mean, the TikTok craze, the reels, right? Those short video clips, are so awesome. I mean, if there are, I mean, I think like Instagram is an underused resource for cybersecurity education. Um, even YouTube, there's not enough around like simplified cybersecurity education, and cybersecurity is phenomenal. Like such a great fit for that because you can fit a lot into 30 seconds, as opposed to, I mean, we talked earlier about some of the really long sessions that we did for our clients. But if you can create a feed or take your longer presentations and slice them up into easily consumable, you're
Yeah.
going to absolutely crush it on digital.
Yeah. And with all of that said, differentiation is so key. And again, back to the kind of opportunity triangle that I talked about at first, there's now 50,000 plus MSPs in the US alone. And you
Yeah.
have to differentiate somehow. You got to get out there and start talking to people and communicate and market and all that. So um, I'll get off my soapbox on that as we're talking about
Love it.
soapboxes. Um, Next question up. I know we're kind of getting short on time, but how should MSPs measure the effectiveness of their training programs?
Oh wow. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that it becomes trial by fire, to be quite honest. Like, boy, I could pull out a dozen examples. We had a client one time, such a an embarrassing story from an MSP perspective, but we had a client one time. He received a text message from Facebook tech support, which I don't know how they would have contacted him via phone. Anyways, something about a security issue with his account, and he was at work, and he said okay, and so they were trying to walk him through some steps inside of Facebook uh, to fix the issue, and he couldn't figure it out. And they said, "Well, we can just take control of your computer." And he's like, "Oh, okay, great." So this is 5 p.m. in the afternoon, and so this tech support connects, and he says, It's the end of my day. I'm just gonna take off, and if you don't, and the guy says, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'll finish up." So he leaves. He's
I'll
at the
finish
office.
up.
He gets his car. He drives about 3 miles down the road, and he's thinking about it. He says, "Yeah, maybe that wasn't such a great idea." And he just called. He happened to have my cell phone. He calls me out with my cell phone and says, "Hey, this is what happened. This is what's going on." I'm like, "Dude, I'm remoting in. I'm killing the session right now." So we remote in and kill the session. But so I mean, you're going to see what their communication is like when you begin to talk about cybersecurity. And so I think having that personal interaction, you're going to hear what the way they speak. I know I talked about at the beginning of this about that CEO that told us that phishing is like a IQ test.
Mm.
When you have those interactions, you can pick up on those sorts of things. The other items are, of course, the tools that we talked about. If you start seeing alerts, if you start seeing a ton of phishing emails that are escaping or they're falling for, it's gonna be loud and clear where your
Yep.
clients sit when it comes to cybersecurity.
Okay. So if you're taking in kind of direct communication, I'll say, and then also the data side of like number of
Yeah.
security incidents, breaches, et cetera, that's going down. Okay, cool. What about do you do any like surveys or anything like that to get any feedback in that kind of middle realm?
So we didn't, but I could certainly see how that could be leveraged.
Okay.
Especially, I mean, I left right at my MSP right at the end of COVID. So when we were doing a lot of our online training during COVID, we heavily leveraged surveys just to kind of figure out where people were at, kind of figure out what they understood and where they were going.
Okay. No, that's interesting. Before we get to the last couple, just want to again say if anyone has any questions or comments, please throw them right into LinkedIn and we can tackle those. So how can an MSP leverage cybersecurity training really to build stronger kind of trust-based relationships with their clients? Because I feel like it can really add to the mix of services and again enhance the relationship overall.
Oh, so we took full advantage of this. I mean, whenever we had the opportunity, we mixed in our mixed in our education with the ability. So I stressed earlier about sharing your struggles.
Mm,
Um, Typically, I don't recommend talking about your tools too much specifically, but in the context of cyber training, a lot of people I usually curtail the question of, why, as a user, why do I have to worry about cybersecurity? Isn't that your job? Well, you know what, Mr. User or Mr. Client, for sure. You know what, we've got our EDR and our MDR. We've got tools that allow us to watch in the back end. But unfortunately, the weakest point, fortunately, it's the humans that tend to the threats that bad actors that are out. So I mean, circling that back and balancing that understanding with them that again, you are in this together. You are that forward facing um, defense against cybercrime. I mean, I'm never afraid to tell people that you're a crime fighter. I'm a crime fighter. We're all crime fighters. As soon as we open up our phone, as soon as we open up our computer, it is up to us to make sure that we're diligent.
got it. No, that makes perfect sense. Um, yeah, it's not just a cleanup effort all the time, if you will.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
we both have to be proactive. And then, interest of time, just last question. We'll throw this up here. What emerging trends or technologies should MSPs be aware of to enhance their cyber awareness training offerings? Anything
Yeah.
big happening?
I mean, you and I touched on it in the beginning. I mean, the whole deep fake, the whole AI movement
Yeah.
is just going to make things more and more challenging. It's funny. We uh, was talking to him actually. I stay in touch with my old MSP, and we were talking about like a lot of questions are coming out from their clients about how do we defend against these deep fakes? How are we? And you know, they're looking for different tools to verify, and we joked about like doing like old school cloak and dagger question and answer that they would know, like, having a passcode that
Right.
that only that person would know, or developing a process that has multiple layers before you can send X amount of dollars over top of $1,000, whatever
Yeah.
works for that business, to have that secondary approval.
Yeah. What is your mother's sister's cat's name?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. AI is kind of, machine learning, all that changing the
Oh,
game
it sure is. Yeah.
across so many industries, obviously, but this as well. Um, how much did you use kind of simulation versus just, again, communication and other elements? Was it a big part of what you did or no?
So we had a couple of clients that annually we would do a simulated disaster. Um, so whether it was just a server outage and how
Mhm.
long it would take to get things up and running. Oh, and that's a powerful selling tool too. I mean, a lot of clients, when you start talking about um, their ability to recover, the acronyms escape me right now. Anyways, but the time to recover, right? And so we start talking, and so they agree to something in a meeting or when you're establishing their services. But when you actually put a client through, and you actually put a company through an outage, and it takes 8 hours to virtualize their server on their backup appliance, wow, they might sit back and go, wow, that 8 hours is a long time. Maybe we need to have that at 4 hours. So let's get some faster drives. Let's change our backup methodology. And so, yeah, doing those types of outages. Other things that we did were things like tabletop exercises. Again, powerful tool, not quite as intrusive as an actual simulation, but certainly allows you to sit down with a client and talk about things like, what, let's say ransomware gets in through RDP or whatever remote tool that you're using after hours. It's a Friday night. So Are you going to let that ransomware sit there until Monday morning when someone notices it and calls us? And then that brings in the conversation around other tools, right? Around EDR
Yep.
and MDR and SOC and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, tabletop exercises, yeah, certainly a powerful, powerful tool to help, again, making that emotional connection, helping the business owners and the decision makers understand where they are in that cybersecurity landscape.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I love that we've kind of gone back to that trend, I think, throughout, which is like the scenario idea of like
Yeah,
getting the potential client or client to think about all these scenarios in their head, whether that's through, actual like simulations and different things like that, or just, the how questions, as you brought up earlier, like, how would you handle this if X, Y, Z? And they
yeah,
start to just think in a different direction, in a different way, then you're just kind of throwing stats or information at them. So I think
yeah,
that's a good good trend across multiple elements of this. So
yeah, for sure, 100%.
Eddie, I really, really appreciate all your insights, all the information, your time today. It's really been, I think, a great session, and I'm sure a lot of people got some good info from it. Whether they have, again, cyber awareness training as part of what they offer or are thinking about it in the future. Hopefully, this was beneficial.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Mark, for having me. Anytime you want to do this again, just give me a ring and we'll do it.
All right, sounds
All right.
good. Sounds good. All right, thank you, everyone.